Hello and welcome to the Happy Families Podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. It's Friday. I feel like saying Friday. I know that that's really cringe if our children were hearing that. In fact, if anyone's hearing that, they might have decided to stop. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Kylie, help me, rescue me. What should I say?
Friday.
No, you can't double down on it. That was terrible. All right, here's what we do every Friday on the pod. For those of you who may be new, a great thing about what I do for work is it's so gratifying. I get to travel around the country, give talks everywhere. People clap and say how much I've helped their families. It's wonderful. And many people will say, I listen to the podcast every day. Just recently, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Perth. A man and his wife handed me a letter, and it was just basically saying, and he made sure, Justin, this is for you and Kylie. Like, they were really, really explicit. This isn't just for you. This is for both of you. And the letter was basically them saying, we love the podcast. It helps us so much. A couple of weeks ago, I got an email from a mum who we featured on the podcast. She sent us a voice note to podcast@happyfamilies.com.au, and we offered some advice on one of our Tricky Tuesday podcasts. Here's what she said, Kylie. She said, hearing my voice on today's podcast shocked me. I had to listen to the episode a few times just to digest it fully. I like that. I think everyone should listen to all of our episodes a few times. That's good, isn't it? Right? We're saying stuff that's so deep, so meaningful, need a few listens.
No, I think it's just hearing your own voice. If it's not something you're used to, it's really, really disconcerting.
She wasn't saying I had to listen to it so that I could get used to my voice. She said I had to listen to digest the podcast. Anyway.
That's because she was still caught up on the fact that she'd heard herself.
Since attending your talk at my kids' school, I signed up for the Happy Families membership. I wanted to write so many times, often out of sadness, burnout, and parenting overwhelm, but I never did. Today, I'm writing not only to thank you, but also to share more about my daughter. Your work has become part of my everyday life. I listen to your podcast while walking the dog, your webinars while working, and I've replaced Netflix at night with your books. At first, it felt like a cold shower, realizing how many mistakes I'd made, despite trying so hard to be the perfect mother. I've read many parenting books, but yours have truly helped me to turn things around. I've started using the 3 E's, staying calm and focusing on connection. I'm not perfect, and there's still a long road ahead, especially when the kids are rude or dismissive, but I feel hope again. Thank you for helping me reconnect and find a better path forward. Your work is making a real difference in our family. Thank you from the heart, Anna. P.S. I'm reading Misconnection and The Parenting Revolution at the same time.
She's hardcore.
So now I know that some people might listen to me read that out and say, oh my goodness, I'm listening to this podcast so this guy can pat himself on the back. That's actually exactly the opposite. I'm reading it out because it means so much to you and I to know that we're actually being helpful. And if you're new to the podcast, that's our promise. We want to be helpful. We want to give you real parenting solutions every day, the sort of things that you don't want to miss the podcast for, because it can really make a difference.
So much of family life feels really hard. You feel like you're in the trenches, and often we can't see the light. And one of the things that you and I value so much is having that sense of hope. We've used the word many times, the idea that we could be hope builders, that we could just elevate your thinking enough to realize that while you're in the thick of it, it's not always going to be like that, and there are solutions.
Speaking of being in the thick of it and that there is hope, my I'll Do Better Tomorrow is not actually about Anna, because that's Anna's I'll Do Better Tomorrow. Rather, it's about what we did last weekend. And I know that there's a whole lot of other stuff that we could talk about, but this was just so meaningful to me that I really want this to be our conversation today. We had the opportunity to go down to the Gold Coast and celebrate my mum and dad's 50th wedding anniversary, which is such a milestone. I mean, 50 years. Is that the gold wedding anniversary?
Yeah.
Okay, I should have given them something gold. I should have given them a pineapple, given them a 50. I didn't.
I thought you were going to say $2.
I did give them something. What did I? Oh, that's right. I bought a ridiculously expensive cake.
That was laced in gold.
You felt like it, the amount of money. Anyway, here's the point that I wanted to make. First, some background. Mum and Dad met for the first time on the Gold Coast. I don't know if it was schoolies or around, maybe it was a year after schoolies or something like that, but they're on the Gold Coast. Mum's gone into this Chinese restaurant. She's hanging out with her friends. My dad walks in with a couple of his friends. He knows a girl that's sitting with Mum. So they start chatting, and my mum is looking at my dad. This is really uncomfortable for me to say this, but my mum's looking at my dad going, hubba, hubba, like, I think he's pretty hot. And then they get talking, and my dad, this is even more embarrassing to share. My dad orders prawns and tomato sauce for dinner, which, I mean,
Who does that?
who does that? And
Is it even on the menu?
my mum literally was like, who does that? But she was so enamored by my dad that he only stayed for a few minutes, ate some prawns and tomato sauce, didn't even finish them all, left them. She ate them. And she was like, I can't believe I'm eating this. This is terrible. But then a few weeks later, back in Western Sydney, they grew up in that Auburn Granville area. For those of you who are familiar with the geography, they bumped into each other at a dance, and that set it all off. And now 6 children and like 18 or 20 grandchildren later, and a couple of great grandkids, mum and dad celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And mum has lined it up. The restaurant that existed back in the 1970s no longer exists, but she's lined up this little Coolangatta Chinese restaurant that literally only has room for about 20 people in it. We'd like to come in. We want to revisit. We want to relive the moment. And they literally ordered prawns and tomato sauce.
Disgusting.
It was inedible. It was so bad. In fact, overwhelmingly, it wasn't the best Chinese meal we've ever had in our lives. But
What's so funny about the story, you missed the punchline was that she didn't even remember meeting him at the Chinese store. It wasn't until they had been dating for a period of time. They went to a Chinese restaurant
and Dad ordered prawns and tomato sauce.
And she went, hang on a sec, were you at the Chinese restaurant at Coolangatta?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, that was me.
So here's my I'll do better tomorrow point, the meta point. Mum and Dad were there with, unfortunately one of the kids couldn't make it, but they were there with 5 of their 6 kids. There's me, then twin sisters, then my brother, then twin sisters. So 5 of the 6 kids, a whole bunch of grandkids, and even a great-grandchild was there as well. And for them to sit there and reminisce, talk about their meeting, talk about the events leading up to their marriage, the birth of these children.
They didn't just talk about it. Again, you're missing all the details. They actually got you guys reenacting it.
So Mum goes, I want to reenact this. And she's saying this to me and my brother. So here's what we're going to do. Dad's going to walk into the restaurant talking to you guys, and you're going to be his mates. And I'm going to be here talking to one of my sisters. She's going to be my girlfriend that I'm hanging out with. And then Dad's going to start talking to her, and then he's going to meet me, and he's going to eat the prawns and tomato sauce. Like, they're making us do a reenactment. My brother's looking at me, rolling his eyes, going, you got to be kidding me. This is bonkers. And yet, here we are a week later. And we're talking about it and we're laughing about it because it's about the relationship. It's about the memories. It's about the conversations. It's about the sharing. It doesn't matter how dumb it is, how silly it is, how ridiculous you look. You're having these experiences. You're building these bonds. You're sharing these memories. And yes, this is a 50th, and most people who are listening to this are not thinking about 50th wedding anniversaries. But whatever you're doing with your kids, make a moment of it. Do reenactments, do role plays, do those things where the kids say, I want to do a play. And you're like, fine, we'll stop our meal and we will watch you while you act something out that you have not prepared, that you don't have a script for, and that you've got no idea what you're going to do or say. But we're going to do that. We're going to watch you and we're going to applaud anyway. Why? Because we're building these memories, these bonds, these experiences, these connections. And one day, 50 years down the track, you might just look at each other and say, do you remember that night? Do you remember that experience? Do you remember that thing we did? And everyone's going to say, oh, yeah, that was the worst. But you're going to laugh about it. The memory is going to be emblazoned on your mind. That is the stuff of families. We think that we're supposed to have perfect families. Prawns and tomato sauce is not a perfect dish. And honestly, the meal that we ate as a family last Friday night, I'm probably not going to go to that Chinese restaurant again. No offense. I'm not trying to be a food snob or anything like that. I might be a little bit of one. I'm not going back there. But forever now, we will remember that night when we sat there with Mum and Dad, celebrated their 50th, acted out the role, watched them literally scrunch up their noses as they tried to eat the prawns and tomato sauce and ultimately just left it on the table. We're going to laugh about it. And how then we walked outside and it was freezing. We went and got the gelatos and then our daughter decided that she wanted to have a pizza from Domino's across the road because she didn't eat enough Chinese because she didn't like the Chinese. Like, all those things are going to come back. And I just think there's so much joy to be found as we just live family life, and we're all in. We're fully committed. We make it work, and ideally, in a perfect world, in spite of the bumps and bruises and challenges along the way, we stick it out so that we can be sitting around that table in 50 years and say, look at what the last 50 years, look at what we've built. And it's got nothing to do with the size of your house or the holidays you go on. It's about the hearts of the people sitting around that table.
Oh, you're giving me the feels.
Good. Good. That's the point. Okay, so Kylie, I'll do better tomorrow. Let's hear it from you. What is the thing that you've either been intentional about or the insight that you've had to build a stronger and happier family?
One of our daughters has had a bit of a crush. And when I say a bit of a crush, it's been big.
Well, when you're a teenager, every crush is
Big.
Eternal love forever. Like it is big. It's huge.
And recently she came to the awareness that it wasn't reciprocated. And all the emotions were felt in one moment, and that moment might have lasted for a long time. I think we still might be feeling the effects of it.
Yeah, like a week down the track. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a rough week.
And I was having a conversation with one of my good friends, and I was just saying, I don't understand it. It's so big and it feels so disproportionate to what she's experienced because there wasn't even a relationship there. I would have expected, based on what she was feeling, that she'd been in a relationship for 2 years. They thought they were going to get married. Like, this has been really big. It has literally stopped her in her tracks.
Rocked her world. Yeah. Yep.
And she looked at me and she just said, "Oh my gosh, I love your daughter." She said, "She feels things so big." And I said, "Yeah, you're telling me." And then she looked at me and she said, "You know, when she finds her man," she said, "he is going to be the luckiest person in the world because she will love him fiercely." And it was just this moment where I sat back and I went, "Oh, how is it that it's taken my friend with her perspective to shift the frustration that I was feeling at this kid who's feeling these massive emotions, and she's just changed my tune in a heartbeat." The idea that our kids will have these big emotions feel inconvenient at times in our lives, and we often don't recognize the magnitude of them for them. And I just love that my friend was able to rearrange things in my brain and help me to see this gorgeous, amazing young woman for the beautiful qualities that she has.
Yeah. I'm reading a book by Ethan Kross, University of Michigan researcher. We had him on the podcast a while back talking about his book Chatter, the internal voice that we have. This one's called Shift. It's about our emotions. And one of the things that he really highlights is that if we want to shift our emotions, if we're in a heightened emotion state, sometimes what we need is perspective. We need to literally change our position. And that might mean that we go for a walk, or we move back a couple of meters, or that we create some space. But sometimes it's just getting another person's voice in our head and this beautiful different perspective. As we've lived through the emotional roller coaster, actually, it's been an emotional earthquake. It hasn't been a roller coaster. As we've lived through the emotional earthquake of the last week, we've kind of gotten to the point where we're going, we are starting to become a bit annoyed with this human that lives in our home. And then you hear that perspective and you go, oh, we love this kid so much. And we'd forgotten about all of the beautiful attributes and qualities that she brings, those characteristics that light us up about her.
But I think it's more than that. I think it's the recognition that the very qualities that drive us crazy about people, when seen from a different perspective, are actually the things that make that person who they are.
I love this.
Here's this kid with this massive heart and this capacity to love so deeply.
Well, we really hope that the insights and the ideas that we shared with you in today's Friday edition of the Happy Families podcast will help you to have a different perspective on the way that you're viewing relationships, especially if they're tough and tricky. The long game is the game that matters, and your kids really do have some characteristics and attributes that are noteworthy and delightful and that can and really do bring joy. Thank you so much for listening. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Have a wonderful weekend. Spend time. Kids spell love Time. Spend time with your kids this weekend. And we'll be back on Monday with more from the Happy Families podcast.